my name is Lindy Sherries and I used to be a Sangoma. In this channel, I talk about everything, guys. Abokorobela, the secrets that we were taught not to share with you guys, how we used to trick you guys, the spirits, how everything works when you go to a Sangoma for consultation, Yamatambo. So whether you believe in God or don't believe in God, please check out this channel so we can talk about it. If you believe in God, let's share the gospel. If you don't believe in God, you can check out the channel too. I want to hear your opinion and I want people to actually share their opinion, not insulting me without saying why. Thank you, and I'll see you on my channel.
Yes, welcome to Solomon's Temple. Good to have each and every one of you here. And it's awesome. Always wonderful to have you here. Pearl, you're the first to comment. And thank you so much. Adam says, hi, Uncle Solomon and all Berean. So want to say hello to every Berean out there. Please make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel as much as you can. Recommend to other people. Share some of the video with others. And also, don't forget to visit our website, unclesolomon.com. There are great videos there that you can check out that I'm sure is going to be a real blessing to you.
Masinya Attorneys Incorporated, a boutique commercial and taxation law firm in Midrand, Johannesburg, South Africa. Strategic lawyers on point with more than 20 years of practice experience. We are professional, capable, and qualified.
Yeah, thank you, Lebohang. You're watching Lebohang. You're watching from Northwest Province in South Africa, all the way from New Jersey. Deborah, awesome, great to have you here. Emmanuel told me, he said it's been a while. You cut live broadcasts. Good to have you here, brother. Callistus, awesome. Eunice, awesome. Zachary is saying it's a business center. Okay, so a church that is headed by an individual is a business center, isn't it? Well, that's what we're looking at today. Church ownership. You know, I was having a conversation with somebody just recently who was just saying, who's trying to convince me that, look, the church belongs to the pastor. I said, how can you do that? He said, well, the pastor put on his name, his business as a surety for the church to get a loan to buy a land and to build a place. But I was like, still, the mistake that you make is a pastor is not supposed to put his own company or his own property as a surety. No matter what you gave to the church for the church building, for the church land, to buy a land, for the church to build a school, for the church to fix roads, it doesn't belong to you. How can you, even if you have toiled and served for 50 years, I'm sorry, that's what you sign up for. It does not belong to you. So church ownership, especially in Africa, has been a very big topic. Sometimes we see church owners moving, church leaders moving from one father to the son, from the son to another son, to another son, to another son. It's become generational. They're confusing us. Even when you know point blank that God hadn't called this son to be a pastor, but you made him be a pastor. Anybody can be a pastor. But the danger is if you allow your son to be a pastor when you actually know that he's not supposed to, but he became a pastor just so he can safeguard the family's legacy and the family's asset and wealth, then there's a problem there. I don't know if you know a guy called, what's his name again? His father started Liberty University in the US. His father was a very prominent pastor, Assemblies of God in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. The son took over the leadership of the church, but now he's into one scandal after another scandal. They had to kick him out of the university. He was the president of the university. I'm trying to remember his name now. Have we turned the church ownership into a family affair? Because God is going to hold every pastor, every bishop, every prophet accountable. And you cannot give God excuses. We are beginning to see more and more trend where it's a family thing. Well, in as much as I'm not a big supporter of the Catholic Church, but I believe there's a lot of things that we can learn from the Catholic Church. So here's a video from a Catholic father, very prominent Catholic Reverend Father. It's called Reverend Father Uluoma in Nigeria, who here he's talking about the ownership of a church, how the church cannot belong to an individual. He said a few stuff about the Catholic Church, which obviously we can make reference to, but just watch this video. Let's watch it and see what he has to say.
Peter not denied Jesus, he denied Jesus, but yet he was still the rock on which Christ built his church. That promise is not general. So nobody can find another church and own church. In fact, any church that is owned by an individual is not the church of Christ. Hello? Praise God. That's why the church of Christ, which we believe is the Catholic Church, and I'm not talking down on any other church. I'm not talking on any other church, no. The church of Christ cannot be owned by a person, by an individual. You see, your Catholic Church is not owned by the Pope. Praise God. If today now Pope Francis wakes up and says, as the Pope, I have decided that a man can marry a man, a woman can marry a woman, what do you think will happen to him? He will not last 24 hours. We go remove him. We, including me and you. As ordinary as we are, what will happen? We remove him because he does not own the church. Churches that are owned by an individual, you cannot say that those are the churches of the Lord, because Jesus said, I will build my church on this rock. So it's not owned by an individual. And that's why this church has no fear of who is going to succeed who. But churches that are owned by individuals, I founded my own church. I have my wife and my children and all of that. I'm going to make provision for, what do you call it, for change of ownership when I'm about to leave now. It happens like that because the church belongs to me. So a true church of God is not owned by an individual. An individual does not decide who succeeds him. So if God has given you the grace to head a church, you can head a church but not own it. See, now I'm being very flexible. If God has given the grace to head a church, you are not supposed to be worried as the head who is going to succeed you. And then you begin to make plans for your own children or your wife or your relative or whoever to succeed you after you are gone. The Archbishop of Abuja, Emeritus John Cardinal Onaikan, his tenure finished. He has left. I hope you know his brothers and sisters are in Abuja here. Did you hear that his sister took over the leadership of Abuja Archdiocese? No. The person who succeeded him, where is he coming from? All the way from Taraba State. The Church of Christ is not owned by anybody. There is only one man, the rock, on whom the Church of Christ is established. Any other person is coming to serve in a capacity. After your own tenure is done, what will happen? You will go. That's how you know a true church. It doesn't have to be Catholic.
That's how you know a true church. It doesn't have to be Catholic. A true church doesn't have to be family. It doesn't have to be the wife taking over or the wife doing that and the son doing that and every family member is doing this and that. And you could actually see that they're actually programming this for the family to continue with the legacy. The church doesn't belong to any one individual. If there's a church where you see the pastor, the bishop, the apostle acting like the church belongs to him or his family, run away. Run and never return. You know what Scar told Simba? Run. That's danger there. And we hope to see some of these big churches, like, especially like what? Christ Embassy, Winners Chapel. We hope to see how they're going to transit. You might say, well, if some other people take it over, they're going to ruin it. No. It's because you didn't train them enough to take over and to make sure that they lead according to biblical principles. You cannot own the church. You can only lead the church. You can be head of the church, but not the owner of the church. It's simple. But we have now in Africa where we're seeing a second generation ownership of church, especially Pentecostal churches. Obviously, you cannot own a Baptist church or Methodist church or Anglican church. You don't hear all these things there, isn't it? But the Pentecostal churches, now we're getting to a second generation. The people like them Oyedepo are gradually phasing out. Them Pastor Chris are gradually phasing out. Them, what's his name? Adeboye are gradually phasing out. So now their children are coming in. How is it going to be like? Oyedepo has already programmed his children. One is leading the church in part of Abuja. One is leading the church in Maryland. Are they really called? If you go look at the documentation of the church, if they know they're going to be truthful and transparent to you, they should show off the documentation of the church. Who is the owner of the church? Who are the board members of the church? Have you ever asked your church now, who are the board members? Then you would know. Because the board members and how the church was registered was actually going to give you an indication of who the owner of the church is. It can only be Christ. And he built it on the rock. Remember what he told Peter, right? He said in Matthew 16:18, and I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. You see, any church that is built by a man, the gates of hell can prevail against it. If you're leading a church and you say the church belongs to you, and then you now pass it on to your children, the gates of hell can prevail against it because it's not built on Christ, the solid rock. So the gates of hell can prevail against it. So don't be shocked. 20, 30 years later, the whole thing is crumbled. There's a lot of examples in America. Because in the US, the Pentecostal Charismatic Church is there in like third, fourth generation transition already, where we see their children taking over. The Oral Roberts, his kids, Kenneth Hagin, his kids, Joel Austin, his father was who? Joe Austin. You know, I used to listen to his father when I was a little child. So we're beginning to see how the whole thing is crumbling for some of them. And we're going to see that in Africa also. The Oyedepos, are they going to pass it over to their children? The Adeboyes, are they going to pass it over? The Chris, is he going to pass it over to any of his daughters, two daughters, or to his brother, Ken, or to some other younger family member? We're seeing a lot of that. You are endangering the life of your family. You're endangering the lives of other people when you think you own the church. You yourself, you own the church building. You strategically put members, family members, and yes people on the board of the church, just so whenever you want to make a decision, you say, well, but I labored here for 20 years, 30 years. No, that's what you sign up for. When it's time for you to leave, leave. And trust that the people that you left are going to be able to govern it. And constitutionally speaking, on paper, constitution with the government, the church does not belong to you too. I hope you know that. That's why you registered it as an MPO. You'll be shocked if you go to Nigeria and check some of the ownership of the church. Just go and ask for the papers of registration and the list of the board members. You will be shocked. You will be shocked. Striving is saying, interesting topic. Just wondering who owns Grace Bible Church. Grace Bible Church is another very interesting conversation. I think his children are beginning. He has two boys, I think. Pastor Musa Sono, his children are beginning to step in. But one major controversy around Grace Bible Church is the fact that one of the leaders, very strong leader, who has been there for over 20 years, is called Pastor Ezekiel Matole, was recently, he's one leader that calls white, and black. He doesn't compromise. And a lot of people, members of the church, are not happy with it because he's the one that tells you the truth straight. They now moved him to Far West Rand in Carltonville. So that's another conversation on its own. Good to have you here, Yolande, Lovina. Lebohang says, churches used to belong to Christ, the Messiah. Not anymore. Now they are family businesses. Real Life Talk says, Solomon, you are okay. Yes, I'm okay. Thanks. It should belong to Christ. That's not the case. Exactly. Church is a family business. Good to have you guys. Good to have you guys. Quite a lot of comments here that I'm trying to follow. Kalista is saying, imagine Pastor Suleiman and all the scandal following him, and they call themselves church owners, which the gate of hell will prevail and has prevailed already. That's right. You see, when you go to a church where the ownership belongs to a family, or you see control where Christ is not the head because of, pride, because of the way they do things, run, because you are positioned. If you don't run, you position yourself for the gates of hell to prevail over your life, because that church is not built on Christ the rock. Simple. It's for your own spiritual health that you have to run. A wife cannot take over the church. The person to take over has to be either revealed by God, mentioned by the previous leaders before his demise or retirement. And you see, okay, for those of you guys who are Nigerians, I think for me, one of the things that I have to look at is also the life of Archbishop Benson Idahosa. He was the head of the church. When he passed away, his wife, Margaret, took over, right? For close to 30 years now. Now they're positioning his son to take over. Is that really what God asked? I'm just asking a question because we need to. And you cannot tell me we cannot ask those questions. Just because you're from the same family doesn't mean you are the next person to take over. It doesn't work that way. So you have to ask those very hard-hitting questions because they are very, very important. Frost says they all believe they own the church, all of them, or Edepo, Yakilome, Ashimolowo. Ashimolowo is the same thing. He just ordained his son as a pastor. Okay, that's fine. But are you doing it because he felt God has called him, or you're doing it because you're trying to position him to take over now that you're getting older? We need to ask those questions. We need to ask those questions. Ezen says, the church they say belongs to Christ, yet the pastor is the one getting angry when we don't pay tithes. Exactly. Let Christ get angry if we don't pay tithes. Let Christ get angry if we don't come to church on a Sunday. Let Christ get angry if the music is not really okay. We have to look at all of these things. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. God bless you. I'll see you again and talk to you. Please make sure you subscribe and make sure you share and like the video. Shalom.